Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of Remax INTEGRA Live. For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Andrew Fogliato and I'm one of the training specialists here at Remax INTEGRA. Before that I was selling just in a small town north of Toronto. We also have our other co-host here today who is Kiran Gandhi, so I'll have her introduce herself as well.
Hi everyone, so I'm Kiran Gandhi and it's great to be on the show today. I'm also a training specialist at Remax INTEGRA and just like Andrew, I used to sell as well, and then I started in this position. We've been doing these trainings in offices, webinars and stuff for quite some time now, and it's exciting. So I'm just going to get started off with explaining the concept of the show today and what we're doing here. So we were sitting down towards the end of last year, me and Andrew were just talking about what kind of topics to come up with and, you know, the webinars that we're going to be doing this year and things like that. And then we were just drawing on some feedback that we had, and we thought to ourselves, well, why not bring in the top producers and some of the successful people from Remax and have them share their stories and talk to us and talk to everybody, you know, with regards to some of these topics. So we're really excited to have, you know, our first episode here today. You can look forward to some other great topics like listing presentations, blogging, creating meaningful business from Facebook and things like that. And these episodes we're going to be doing every second Monday of every month. So you can look forward to these episodes every second Monday of every month, with the exception of, you know, some of the holidays or some of the pre-planned events that were already in the calendar that we couldn't do anything about. So yeah, that's just, you know, a little bit about the show and the concept of the show. And now I'm going to let Andrew just talk about today's episode.
So today's episode is on time management. So we're kind of titled A Day in the Life of the Top Producer. So we're going to have a couple of our top producing agents share with us how they manage their day. So I have some intros here to read, so forgive me for reading off the paper here. So our first guest is Karen Landry, who's been a licensed real estate agent for 27 years and has just started her 24th year with Remax. She's a Chairman's Club award winner and consistently in the region's top 25 individual agents. She's also earned the Remax Lifetime Achievement Award and the Remax Hall of Fame. Karen covers a large area between Shrewsbury, where she lives, and her office in downtown Boston. She's also the single mother of two, so thank you, Karen, for joining us today.
Thank you, Andrew. Glad to be a part of this program.
Great. And then our other guest is Marian Carconi, a phenomenal agent, even though I might be slightly biased on that because she actually taught me a lot when I was starting out in real estate because she was from the same office as I am. Marian began her real estate career in 1989, and she was been with Remax York Group, which is now Remax Hallmark York Group, in Aurora, which is just north of Toronto, for the past 25 years. She earned 100% club status in her first year with Remax and has since gone on to be Chairman's Club for the better part of the last decade and Platinum before that. She's also been inducted into the Remax Hall of Fame in 1997 and earned the Remax Lifetime Achievement Award in 2005. And as of November 2014, she also ranked in the top 100 of Canada's almost 20,000 Remax agents. She also believes strongly in community involvement. She has served in the Girl Guides organization, has been a member of the Aurora Chamber of Commerce, and since joining Remax has been a major supporter of and contributor to Toronto's Hospital for Sick Children through the Children's Miracle Network. So thank you for joining us today as well, Marian.
Thank you, Andrew. That's a beautiful opening statement. Thank you. Very kind.
No problem. So welcome, guys. We're excited to get this started, but let's not waste any time. We're going to get right to it with the first question. So we'll have Karen answer it first, and then we'll jump right in and have Marian answer it as well. So the first one is, what time do you guys wake up every day, and then what time do you start working?
Well, every morning I'm usually up between 4:30 and 5, but I'm guaranteed to be up by 5 because my coffee pot goes off at 4:45 by timer. I find that between 5 and 6 a.m., that's when I can do most of my marketing, my emails to my clients in a very quiet setting with no interruption. And this way, when my clients wake up, they already have an update from me every single morning. And that really is very helpful because it really cuts down on the phone times each day. So I start very early, and I'm usually in bed by 9 to 10 o'clock at night. I'm an old girl. I don't really stay up past that time.
That's good. And how about you, Marian?
I'm completely the dead opposite from Karen. I am not an early morning person, and you know that Kate and Joel will be only too happy to tell you that. That's just never worked for me. I tend to love the evening, and probably what Karen does in the morning, I might do in my office between 8 and 10 at night. That's just the way my clock works. So I'm probably not up till 8:30ish. I usually hit my office around 9:15. I work from my office every morning. That's just my best time. My brain is freshest, and usually if I'm doing appointments and CMAs and all that sort of thing, they're in the afternoon.
So completely different styles there, but
Completely.
sounds like they're both working.
If he woke me up at 4:30, I'd probably turn it off.
I know, but regardless, it seems like both of you are putting in long, long hours of work. So even though you've got different hours of waking up and going to bed, you're both putting in extensive hours, which is, one of the keys. And, that brings me to my next question, actually. What is the first thing you would say you do, the first task you do every day? So upon waking up, whether it's at 8:30 or it's at 4 a.m., what is the first thing you would say that you do to start off your day?
For me, I hit my emails always, just exactly like Karen, because they can come in late at night or early in the morning. You're correct, and I find if you're not on them in the morning, you're way too late. In other words, you can't come back in the afternoon and hit them. So that's the first thing I do with my coffee.
That's important, of course.
It's a big thing in the realtor toolbox to have, I guess.
Yep.
How about you, Karen?
I agree with Marian. Email and social media is the first thing I hit in the morning, again, with a very large cup of coffee until that entire pot is drained. With that said, I also make a list of tasks to do. If it's not done the night before, it is the first thing I do in the morning. I really, really believe in having a list of tasks to do, and I usually start with the hardest task. So I think being prepared for the day is extremely important, and that quiet time is the best time to do that.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yeah, I've heard that for the eat the frog theory, so start the day with the thing you hate doing the most.
Absolutely.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's interesting, if you don't mind me interjecting there, Karen, I'm also a big list person, and I find, now Andrew has been gracious enough to get me onto Evernote, but I shouldn't be admitting this to him, but often quietly in the evening in my office, I make some handwritten lists. I don't know if it just stays in my brain better or connects as to how I have to deal with it, but I'm a big list person too.
And take pictures of your list, and then Evernote will read your handwriting and then keep it as part of your notes.
Perfect. Andrew, you have to come over.
Yeah, there's an excellent solution for everything when you talk to Andrew.
Always a way. All right, so you guys start mostly with emails. What other tasks during your day do you say take priority over everything else? So why don't we start with Karen for this, of what tasks take priority over all the other ones during your day?
Prospecting. That is my biggest task of the day. If I don't end my day with prospecting in some fashion, whether it's email, a phone call, an appointment, a coffee, a lunch, anything, then I feel like I have not had a successful day. My broker owner, Linda Okaniski, is a proponent of making sure that you are very effective with your use of time. And she gives a point system to money-making activities, and I feel like prospecting is definitely at the top of that list. So I'm always having coffee in the morning with someone, very briefly, or maybe I'm shooting out an email to schedule an appointment with someone, but I'm always sourcing, and I think sourcing is the integral part of our entire business plan.
I could not agree with you more. It's really funny. It's very interesting to hear another agent speak. Doesn't matter where we work or what city we work out of. Certain things are just absolutes. And I'm like you. There's always that list of, even if it's, and sometimes it's not business-related calls I'm making. It may be somebody that I sold something 4 months ago. I want to know, how are things? Is everything okay? Are you enjoying it? Et cetera, et cetera. So, yeah, I'm big on that too. I'm trying to get around, Karen. I've made it a goal to try and do 5 notes a day, just 5. It doesn't take hours. It would take 20 minutes, half an hour. I won't tell you that I'm perfect at it, but it's my goal for this year, just a hello note.
So with that in mind, we actually have a question from Lando Calrissian on Twitter, and he's asking, that's your routine now that you're established. What was it when you were only about 2 or 3 years into the business?
They're not going to want to hear me say my routine were very much the same as they are now. I do realize, number one, I'm not sure about Karen, but I'm very lucky to have been born, raised, gone to school forever in the same small area. So I've been very blessed like that. When people first come into the business now, I think it is more challenging, more difficult. For me, I just think that they need to spend a certain a part of every day making absolute personal contact. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on social medias. I'm just not. I just find I was down in Colorado with my daughter in October for the luxury sort of division had a thing going on, and it was very interesting to find out how many of those realtors found that there was an awful lot of lost time on the Twitter, the social media. It can go on and on. Let's face it, we all know we could spend hours and hours and hours on those. I don't know about Karen, there again, respectfully, it may be different for her, but I don't get quality leads from there. Where I would get a quality lead is from a telephone call, from, as Karen said, having a coffee with somebody. The more one-on-one, I think everybody's inundated these days with so much going on. Just my opinion. So.
That's great. How about you, Karen? What were you like in the first couple of years?
I was really into personal promotion. This is back in the day when Howard Brinton was our favorite mentor in the industry. And personal promotion was brand new in the early 90s. And in my local market area of that time, it was a very small area. And I was the first person to put my picture in an ad. I was the first person to start mailing just listed and just sold cards. I had my website. And most of the area agents just did not have those items. And at that time, if you had personal promotion going on for you, it really made you noticeable in the marketplace. And I did a lot of fun ads, but I always made sure that my picture was on everything, and people got to know me. People would notice me when I went into a restaurant, and they'd come over and say hello. So that was a big part of me taking off in the early 90s, especially with RE/MAX.
Mm-hmm. No, that sounds good.
I also just want to remind everyone while you're watching that if you have any questions you'd like answered, we're going to have Q&A at the end, but we can also take some during. Just put them on Twitter using the hashtag #RILive, and we'll take questions in that way. That's the best way to do it because I'm monitoring the feed as we're going. But next up, we got Kiran as the next question.
I do actually. You know what? It's really interesting just to listen to both of your perspectives because we're going through the typical day of a top producer, and obviously that's what both of you are. And now that brings me to my next question, which is obviously we've talked about priorities and what tasks you do first and how you do them, but delegation comes in next because how much of it can you do yourself, and then how much do you delegate, and how do you do it, and which tasks do you feel are better, done yourself, and which ones do you feel better delegating? Because that's again a very crucial part of your success, isn't it?
Well, currently I do not have an assistant, and most of the tasks I do personally, I just have always done this with the exception of a couple of years in the business where I did have a personal assistant and I was doing an even higher volume of transactions, not necessarily dollar amount. But with that said, I think it's very important that you surround yourself with support, and that support can come from your lender, it can come from your attorney, it can come from your administration. The attorneys and the lenders need to be proficient at what they do. So when you're referring to any of those sources or business partners, it's important that you're not having to micromanage those people, and that saves you a lot of time. They become part of your team. We also have very talented administration at RE/MAX Leading Edge who can do our graphic arts. They can help us with our marketing, with our social media, and that takes a big percentage of our time. And by utilizing them for our marketing pieces, I can then take a print to mail service and they will do my marketing for me as well. So I feel like if you have the right sources, you can do quite a bit on your own. But with that said, if I'm going to increase my business this year, then I realize that that's going to be an important element in helping me grow, is to have some new help this year.
Yeah, everywhere I've read about, when you're building teams, it's the assistant's the first person that people hire to kind of take some load off. How about you, Marian?
Well, as you know, I have what I call Fred, right? Just so you know, my husband is a realtor, also with Remax Hallmark York. He's been in real estate longer than me, so he's 30 years in, and he really is my team. Whether it comes to writing up a listing, doing my ads, website, you name it, any changes, anything I need paperwork-wise, he handles the mail and the outs as well. There again, I find sometimes it can be a challenge if you farm out too much. I tend to be, like I think Kiran, a bit more hands-on. I do notice there's a lot of people that think large teams are the way to go. It'll never be for me, because I prefer the hands-on approach. I do think that you're better to do when I say a smaller amount, you're better to keep the people that you're working for happy. Rather than having too many people on your team. Sometimes I'm sure we all see people who have huge teams of people that nobody seems to know what's going on at any given time.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously there are certain tasks, like you said, that you feel you're more hands-on with and you feel like you can be in control of. So what would you say those things are that you absolutely feel like you cannot delegate to anybody and you feel like you should be in control of?
Well, I noticed on one of the questions on Andrew's page was, do you have someone else do your CMAs? And absolutely, that's a no for me. I know I could not possibly do a listing presentation and make them think that I know what I'm talking about if I was picking up a file that somebody else had done. I need to know the houses that I'm using for comparisons and the ones that sold, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's one thing I would never, ever delegate.
Okay, so obviously it's really important for you to know the stuff. You need to know that CMA and those comparables before you're walking in, so you're able to, obviously have that conversation confidently.
Yes. Yeah.
What about you?
I agree with Marian. I do my own CMAs. I feel that unless I've done them myself, I don't have the knowledge that's needed to be able to go in very confidently and sell them on what I feel is going to be the best marketing approach for them, both in terms of marketing and in price.
Right.
I guess, that's a really interesting perspective, because as people are obviously in this profession getting more and more business, and they're deciding, well, where do I draw the line of what I do myself and what to hand over to people, I guess CMAs is something that people may have a tendency to delegate because they just don't want to select themselves, but it's a great point that you brought forward of having that confidence when you're going in. Perfect.
So on the topic of, Kiran brought it up recently about mortgage partners and sending them, do you have reciprocal referral relationships where it's like every 4 referrals generated, you send one in return or something like that? Do you have any agreements in place with your kind of partners?
I don't. I feel that it's more important and more valuable to my clients that they're being serviced correctly. And I want to know that when I pass off a referral, that they're going to make it to the closing table. And it's also just as equally as important that they have a good experience along the way. I do appreciate the reciprocation of referrals, absolutely, as anyone would. But I think it's more important that that referral become an extension of my service, and that they are going to have a very good experience, because otherwise it's going to be me that they remember if they're not happy. So I'm more interested in making sure the client is serviced and that they make it to the closing table.
Yeah, I was the same way when I was doing it too. When I was sold everyone, I never cared about if they, well, obviously I cared if they sent me referrals too. I appreciated it, but at the same time, I more cared about, are they actually finishing it for me? How about you, Marian? How do you feel on that? 100%
with Kiran. Yeah, I've never thought about the reciprocal end of it. I deal with really top-notch, as she said, inspectors, lawyers, lenders. I remember one of the lender actually who I love the most, because that is, if we think our field is competitive, I think that's unbelievable these days. And I remember when I first started with her, and she was so phenomenal. at what she did, but she said something about, I'm going to, kick back, and I just looked at her and I said, I don't want that. I just want you to get the best deal for my clients. She's never let me down since. Lucy Russ is her name. She's fantastic, and yeah, I don't think that you could be sitting there waiting for something back all the time. Yeah.
Great point. So, question on a different kind of topic here. So, for each of you, we'll start with Marian on this one. How many hours a day do you work? How many days a week? And how many months a year are you working?
Okay, so I probably handle this a lot different than some. I work 7 days a week. There's no doubt about it. I'm going to say from January through to November for sure. I'm on it every day, and I'm going to say for sure 12 hours. A long day can be 14. I'm not saying I never take a day off, but it is pretty rare. I, of course, as you know, Andrew, I like to take off and get away, and therefore I do leave for Sedona. I'm just going to say in December and January I'm not even here, which is not to say that I ignore everybody and don't bother with anything. I do have an office in my home there, but that's my sort of, I guess, carrot at the end of the year. I go, you know what, I don't mind keeping my head down for this amount of time, but I really believe in sort of recharging your batteries, which I do at that time.
Get away from the snow a bit.
Absolutely.
That always helps.
How about you, Karen?
I, like Marian, also work 7 days a week, and I usually call that my reward to not miss anything of my children. I book around them, so I never miss any of their events. So I work 7 days a week, as a result of that, and that's okay by me. I'm very happy with that. I do take 2 weeks in the summer to go to Myrtle Beach. It's a tradition that I've had with my kids since they were born. And I usually also take a bit of time off between Christmas and New Year's. But with that said, I also take some long weekends. But I'm never really off. My email is always accessible, and I'm always available for anything critical that comes up. So I think that's important, is the communication piece. And technology's really helped us to do that. It allows us to be away without our clients knowing we're even away, and be able to service them very quickly with just a quick response. Sometimes it's just a 1 or 2 sentence reply via email, and to me that's not costly in the terms of taking a day off. So overall, I would say I probably work 50 to 60 hours a week.
So do you guys ever have a time that you just completely disconnect with your phones and emails and everything, where you just put them away and say, this next few hours or next few days, I'm not touching anything, and like hand it off to someone else? Or do you guys have any of that?
I personally, I'm going to say the one day that I don't take clients, most people find this pretty weird too, is Sunday. Even though I would probably do paperwork and other work-related tasks on Sunday, that is a day I try and step away. There again, I'll give it everything those other 6 days, and I don't care how many hours. But Sunday, I like to just have a bit of downtime, and that's when you would. If you emailed me, you might not hear back from me till Monday.
So how about you, Karen?
If it has to do with my children, yes, I do put the phone away. If it's a concert or maybe it's a game, of course, well, my daughter's now away at college, so I have a little more time to work because she was pretty active while she was a senior. But not really, in all honesty. The only time I've taken complete time off was about 4 years ago when I went on a cruise, and I had someone else take the reins. That's the first time in 15 years I had taken a vacation without a cell phone and without email. And by the end of the week, I was so antsy and so ready to get to a computer or a phone. I think that's just the AAA that I am.
I agree.
I know Marian's a bit like that too. I know at the time she's waiting to come back from her December, January, she's ready to get going again.
Yeah. No, Andrew's absolutely right. I mean, although I do take the time off, but the good news is by the end of it, you just go, I just can't wait to get back on that plane, and I just can't wait to get back to work. So, yeah, good.
And Kiran's got our next question.
So I want to talk a little bit about one of the things that, when I was selling as well, I was struggling with is making sure that everything gets done. So obviously, as you mentioned, you both list people, you make sure that you wake up, you make a list of everything that needs to be done. But truth is, oftentimes we don't get to that list. Oftentimes everything but the list items get done. So how do you really make sure that, the things that you're scheduled to do, and sometimes those are things that we don't enjoy doing, but come with the business anyway, how do you make sure everything is done? Do you have a method, like do you time block certain hours, or how do you make sure that it all gets done?
Well, I think it's a matter of prioritizing. Again, if you make the hardest first, if you make the most important first on your list, then hopefully by the time you get down to the lower level of that list, it's going to be things that aren't as pertinent to being done that day. Hopefully they're going to be kind of ancillary tasks that you can put off to the next day, only if time didn't allow. Because things do come up every day, and you do have different demands by different clients that could interfere with what would be the perfect day. So I think we have to be a little flexible at the same time. But again, I think if you manage it in a fashion that your most important is first on the list, hopefully you're going to have an opportunity to take care of that.
That's a good point. Yeah, and how about you, Marian?
Yeah, same sort of thing. I tend to be fairly regimental with my the days I choose to do tasks. I'm a very big lister. So Monday is a day that I'm just in my office. I don't take outside appointments because I find if you don't connect, with your sellers on Monday after you've gathered your information, from the agent showing your property on the weekend, you never will. As you know, and Andrew, we have specific times in Aurora where we do inspections, and I just try to sort of work my days around what's sensible. Like, for example, Tuesdays. Do you do inspections in Boston as well? Do you get out? Okay.
We do.
Those are things you don't want to miss. Yeah, I guess I just keep plugging through till I hopefully get to the end of the list.
So there is some time blocking certainly involved by, because that certain days, and according to, the schedules around where you work in the business. Okay, perfect. Yeah, I guess that's really necessary, because even when I was selling, the certain things that I just don't enjoy doing, and I think what I was doing wrong was putting the hardest things kind of towards the end and starting off with the easier tasks, because it's just the easier thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, we have another question here. So how do you set your boundaries with your clients? So when, do you set them at the beginning? So you say, here's some nights that I won't absolutely, meet you. You can call me between these hours and these hours, or what are the boundaries you set with your clients, and when do you do it? So we'll start with Marian on this one.
Yeah, most of my clients, there again, after being around a while, they pretty much know me. They can reach me just about any time in the 6 days that they would want to. I'm pretty clear that if I'm out with clients, and even if I'm on a listing presentation that I'm taking the listing, I'm very, very clear, because usually it's afternoon that I deal with clients and meeting people, or maybe, starting CMAs or going through houses. I let them know that if they page me and they don't hear back from me immediately, it's because I'm with other clients. And I'm not even a realtor that takes a phone in on a listing presentation. Just don't do it. It's in the phone, or it's in the car. So I would say my clients know that certainly they can reach me on the 6 days. Probably most of them all know too. Sundays, no point in looking for me. And I'm not saying I would never ignore an offer. If I have, of course, been involved in things like multiple offers where you just have to be there or whatever. I'm not saying I make no exceptions. But for me, I find there's an awful lot of people, I don't know how Karen feels about this, Sundays are a day that they're looking to fill with some sort of entertainment, and I sure don't want to be it.
That's a good point. How about you, Karen?
I think one of the first things you need to do is find your method of communication that's more preferable with your client. If they're more interested in texting versus emailing versus phone call, that type of thing. I am very, very quick to respond to my clients. It's almost instantaneously if I'm not with someone automatically. And I kind of set the preface that if you don't hear back from me, it's because I'm truly not available. And they get spoiled by that instant gratification of getting a response right away. Right. But one thing I do set as a boundary, if I can, and certainly I want to keep the client's best interest at heart, is that I do not schedule inspections on weekends. I try very hard to have them Monday through Friday because the weekends are so important to the buyers that need to be out there searching. And in the Boston area, most homes are a company, and you have to be on that listing agent's schedule in order to show. So with the open house schedules and the co-broke schedules on a weekend, it can be very, very difficult to get into the properties. So I know I need to make myself available on the weekends to the buyers that are trying to get in. So unless it's a situation where the buyer absolutely cannot do an inspection Monday through Friday, then I would perhaps, you know, pay someone on a per diem in my office to cover that inspection for me so I can be face-to-face with clients.
Makes sense. So on the topic of buyers and showings and that, do you have anyone who handles buyers for you? Do you ever make deals with people where you just don't have time for those buyers, so you send it to them and kind of make a referral deal with them? Do you have anything like that, or do you handle all the buyer leads personally?
I usually handle all the buyers myself, but there are those occasions where you do need, you know, someone to cover for you, and we have some excellent talent in our office and really very professional and dependable people, and so we're very fortunate that we have those folks we can call on.
Me, Andrew, there again, it's Fred. Like, you know, there again, if I can't be there, Fred's there. You know, or if he has to open up a property that we need to be there, you know, it's one or the other of us. Yeah. I mean, there's just the odd night. Let's just say something comes up and it's very, it's a hot listing. Yeah, I maybe have a couple of people I've got to get into it. Well, you can only be at one place at a time. Fred will fill in for me, and he's great.
That's good.
Yeah.
Kiran's got the next question.
I do. One of my favorite topics, actually, I want to talk about now is systems, because you know, we talk about that a lot when we do our trainings and things, and would love to hear from you guys about, do you have systems that you've put in place for your business, and what kinds of systems do you have, if you have any? And, you know, how do you work around them? How do you work with them? If there's somebody assisting you or helping you, how do you transfer those systems? So we'll start with Karen on that one.
Okay, I do have systems, and they're usually technology-based. Okay. I think technology has definitely afforded us more time in our business each and every day. Mm-hmm. Our company uses the dot loop system for electronic filing of all of our transactions. Mm-hmm. It also serves as an electronic signature for most documents. So that's really important to me. Recently, I had a client who waited until the very last minute to submit an offer, where a deadline was 5 p.m., and I knew I couldn't sit around all day waiting to write that offer. So I pre-wrote the offer with the exception of price. Unfortunately, I have that software system as an app on my phone. So when he sent me a text at 10:05, which I knew he was going to do, I was able to add that price to the contract on my phone, hit send. I sent him a text saying, check your email. He electronically signed it, and I shared it with the broker in all less than 2 minutes. So I think that's very, very important. I also have a box of note cards that sits in my purse every day, so that when I leave a client, they get a personal note from me. Sometimes if I park a block away after a listing appointment, they get a handwritten note and it goes in the mail the same day. To me, that's a system, having the availability of doing these things each and every day. Our listings, we have a third-party service that schedules our showings as a listing agent, and that service also emails the showing agent about 2 hours after the showing for feedback. That enables us to press and send a forward to the seller, giving them feedback as soon as we have it. The other nice thing is that, of course, with RE/MAX Lead Street, we have the opportunity to provide seller reports every week. So all these technology-based systems really do free up a lot of time and allow us to do what we need to do, which is being face-to-face with our clients.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, that sounds fantastic. And just want to mention that the Lead Street system that you mentioned, that's only available in the US. So our Canadians that are listening, you will not have that option, but, you know, all the other things sound fantastic.
They
And
run performance sheets with the one sheets though, which can work pretty well for that as well. So they have a different version that they can use.
absolutely, yeah, those provide some good stats to your sellers as well from time to time, periodically. If you just want to tell them how their listing's doing online, that's absolutely a great point. And how about you, Marian? What kind of systems would you say you have?
I've used Top Producer for years, which I find is fabulous. It really is a system of checks and balances. It keeps note. It's amazing. You'll have a pop-up saying you haven't contacted somebody for so long. We obviously have a great office who does make all of our appointments, et cetera, et cetera. And just like Karen described, the emails go out to the agent. We await feedback. Feedback is something I find a bit of a trial, and maybe Karen does too, because a lot of agents, they're very busy. You can't blame them. You and I both know we're probably not going to have to chase down an agent who's truly going to buy the property, right? They're going to find us. But, you're right. Those sellers want to hear something. So, I'm always upfront with them. I have a girl, actually, who every Monday morning at 8 o'clock, all of my show sheets are sent to her. She immediately, on Monday morning, starts the phone calls and the emails so I can gather the information. Obviously, anybody who specifically wants to speak to me, then I'm on that too. But it frees me up a little bit for those calls that they're maybe not interested in the property. So.
Perfect.
Yeah. So I have a question here for the topic of hiring someone there to do those. At what point do you decide when you're working on certain tasks that it's worth it to hire someone to do that for you, and then you're not going to do it yourself anymore? So at which point do you think that it's worth it to hire someone?
Well, for me, going back to even the feedbacks, which, I think, if you're a lister, and I think Karen is too, it can be a full-time, round-the-clock job. It was at that point that I hired a girl who I felt she was just great with organization. I'm sent back those sheets, even, obviously they come back to me Monday, but they come back to me Wednesday and Friday too, because if the feedback from specific people is not there on Monday, I can't give it. I find she's worth her weight in gold to me, because she probably gives me an entire day a week that I'm not doing that.
That's great. And how about you, Karen?
I use the admins in the office to help me with my marketing. I think, having someone who can be creative takes up a lot of my time and frees it up, because if I have to think and do something creative, it's going to take me a lot longer than it's going to take other people. So it's just fabulous having that component. And again, using these third-party services for my mailings, for my printing, things like that, that I think outsourcing is the way to go. There's also a website called Elance, which are contractors that can do different services. There's also TaskRabbit here in the U.S., where if you just need someone to go run errands for you, you can go to TaskRabbit and pay them on a per diem basis to go and do chores for you. Or maybe even it's just doing some administrative work. But right now, I'd like to outsource as much as I possibly can.
There's a great one too like that, which is available in the U.S. and Canada, called Fancy Hands, which works really well for outsourcing kind of more menial administrative tasks. That's a good company for that as well.
It's called Fancy Hands, Andrew?
Yeah, Fancy Hands.
Like Fancy Hands.
Okay. I've never heard of it.
It's a newer company, but they're out of New York, but they work well here in Canada as well.
Okay, yeah.
So I have another question. So this is whether when you were starting out up until now, do you use someone to keep you accountable? Like, do you have an accountability partner? Just someone to help you kind of stay on task if you ever veering off a bit, give you a little kick.
My banker. No, I actually don't. I've never, I sort of, I set my goals every year. I determine what I would like or need to do, and I probably am just accountable to me, and I'm my worst taskmaster. I always know where I am in relation to the year before. A lot of people maybe measure themselves against other people. I don't have a tendency of doing that. I race it. If I'm running a race, it's probably against me. So.
You're your own biggest competition?
I am.
How about you, Karen?
I think Marian and I share the same DNA. I really do. But I am also my worst critic, and I evaluate my business plan constantly, almost on a daily basis. I'm a big statistical person, so I have a spreadsheet for everything I do and what the return is and where I expect to be. But I do have a lender who is one of my closest friends, and he is the same way as I am when it comes to business value, and we support each other wholeheartedly. And I don't think I could do my business every single day without him, because he's just that kind of a person that he gives me a lot of motivation, a lot of support, helps me on the difficult days, helps me on the good days. And I try to do the same for him. And I think having yourself surrounded by the people that are going to help you, I think that's really, really important. I depend a lot on my RE/MAX family. I feel like we have a lot of support in our office, and that really helps us get from day to day.
That's amazing. And you know, one of the things that both of you just said, which I picked up on, is the fact that you're continually reviewing. You're keeping stats, you're keeping a track of all your efforts, and you're measuring them as you're going along, because a lot of us don't do that. We don't feel the need to do that. It sounds very textbook, but you know, listening to you two and your great examples of two people who are really successful in the industry, it just reinforces the importance of doing that. That's a great point that you put forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you know, I think it's very, for anybody who is producing, you really have to, you know, I use the comparison that when a pilot gets into a plane and everybody thinks he just presses the button and you end up in London, but you don't. He's got to keep changing, checking, and adjusting for whatever's going on outside that plane. And I look at our job as very much like that. You know, there are times when, you know, you set your goal for your first quarter, you maybe didn't make it, and you need to, rather than getting to December and go, oh gosh, I fell short, you've got to go, okay, I've now got to readjust. That quarter was not great. I need to make this one great. What do I need to do? Yeah, and I always say, if you really keep track of what you're doing and how you're doing it, you will do it. You won't fail. Failure's not an option. I've always said that.
That's amazing. And you know, I'm going to use this analogy in one of my training sessions, the one that you just said.
You know, I can't take too much credit. I read that in a book one day, and it was probably, and I must admit, my broker, Barb Brindle, really does constantly, she's a reader. I'm a reader. I don't know if Karen's a reader, but I love to read great books. I don't always want to read about business because I work so much. I do love fictional novels, but this particular book was talking about how a pilot, and I've always compared it to our business, because I think that so many people don't pay attention, you know, all year to things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so we have another question on the question of like accountability, things like that. What are your guys' thoughts on coaches and coaching? So why don't we start with Kiran? That's our last question before we get to the audience Q&A.
Okay.
I feel coaches are very important to many, many people. I currently serve as a very informal coach to a couple of people, so I find that kind of about my own business, and sometimes it's self-motivating to do that. But I think sometimes the coaching can just come from the people you're surrounding yourself with, such as the lender that I mentioned earlier. You know, he's constantly supporting me, coaching me, holding me accountable, and I think that's equally as important as a formal coach. I know a lot of people that it works very well for, so I'm a proponent for it. I think it's just each individual has to do what they feel they're comfortable with.
Okay. How about you, Marian?
Yeah, no, you know what? You made reference to, you know, things that I maybe helped you a little bit with RE/MAX. I personally don't have it, and I don't have somebody, as I said, I'm accountable to. Is this bouncing back for everybody?
Bouncing back.
Is it? When do I sound like I'm doing a real echo?
Hello? Talk. I've muted everyone, so there should be no bounce back except for you. So you can finish, and then I'll unmute everyone.
Sorry, you know, as I was speaking, Andrew, I could hear every word like rolling back about 10 seconds later. But anyway, so I am not, you know, it's something I've thought about. I guess I'm blessed to be the type of person, I'm fairly self-motivated. I just am. Yeah, so I don't have I mean, if there's new people and, you know, they want to ask me something, I'm more than happy to help them. Probably as far as I go.
Great. So we got some questions from the audience now. And I'm going to just change this up so I think it comes to mind. For 1 second, let me just set this up. All right.
You're always cool under
pressure. That should be better now. Unmute Kiran. I look great like this too, I know. I still have Kiran muted. And it's not letting me unmute, so we're going to keep Kiran muted for a bit. If she wants to come in here, she's going to be muted for a bit. So our first question from the audience is actually for Marian. And if you don't work Sundays, about open houses.
Andrew?
Yeah.
Whatever. You just asked me something?
It's still not proper.
You know what? It just is. It's
There you go.
Oh, I can hear Karen.
Okay.
Is mine still bouncing back?
Very much.
Okay. So let me mute myself again. I'm going to mute myself. I'm going to put questions into the chat function. So if you go on the left side of your screen, there's an option there for chat. I'm going to put the questions into there. And then you guys can answer them. Okay? It'll be the blue bar on the left side. And then I'll mute myself.
Am I still muted?
Okay, I just posted the question from Marian.
You did. I don't see it, Andrew.
You put your mouse over your screen. You should be able to see the chat button. It's a blue rectangle. Where we hit the toolbox earlier. You click on that.
Okay, just a second. It's the blue. I've got the toolbox. Sorry. And you want me to do the? Okay, I think I found it. Maybe. There's chat. I've hit it. Oh, question for Marian. Open Sundays. Do you do it? Not on Sundays. No, I do it on Saturdays. I don't generally. Obviously, both Joel and Fred are also busy. There's lots of times they would like to do Sunday open house on Saturday, and at that point. Did you get that okay?
So since we're having some technical issues here, I'm not sure why. I'm going to type in one more question, have you answer it, and then we'll stop it down. So just give me a second to type it in, and then that'll be it for today.
Okay. We did brilliantly for the first 50 minutes, Andrew. How much am I involved in the community? If I weren't in real estate, I would probably be far more involved in the community. As I said, I'm a real sick kids backer. It's my favorite charity. I actually trained to work with a hospice house in Newmarket a couple of years ago, but I must admit I wasn't able to really take that to the level that I would have liked to because the job is so unpredictable and there's so many hours involved. So I've got to say I probably have a bit of a fall down there, no doubt about it.
All right, so it looks like we're gonna have some technical issues going forward, so it's not letting me fix it. So unfortunately, it's not even letting Karen's sound come through as well. We made through most. Oh wait, now Karen's unmuted. Karen, you can answer that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Basically, most of my community involvement is in my children's school. My son is still in high school, and I'm pretty involved, with most aspects of anything that he does there, whether it's sports, whether it's music, or just perhaps even his grade. So, I feel that's an important piece because it shows my interest in his school, but it also shows my interest in what he does. So it kind of becomes a very easy sphere of influence at that point.
Great. So I just want to thank everyone for coming today. There are a few more questions that we have. I'll actually email them to both of you, and then I'll post the answer on Facebook so you guys can still get the answers to some of those. So if you don't have either Kiran and I on Facebook, certainly add us on there, and we can answer them for you. So thanks everyone for coming. Our next episode is going to be on March 9th at 11 a.m. with Nathan Dart and Matt Richling, and it's on the topic of secrets to a great listening presentation. So stay tuned for that one on March 9th at 11 a.m. Otherwise, thank you for coming today. I hope you guys all got something great, and the recording will be available on Rise. So you can find that at rise.remaxintegra.com. It'll also be on the Remax Integra YouTube channel. So thank you everyone for coming, and I hope you have a great day.